Mr. Phillips, you were convicted of common law abuse. I had the pre-sentence report with the state's version, but your account of the offense is unclear. I'd like to read the victim's version of the offense, and then I'll ask you about your version. The victim's version is as follows. Brian Sr. came home on Friday night in a very bad mood. Apparently he had a difficult day on the job. His boss had been giving him a hard time lately, I guess because his work was not up to expectation. Brian Jr. was making a lot of noise, fussing due to his recent cold. I had a beautiful dinner ready, as I always do, and the table was set just right. Brian didn't even say hello before he started complaining about tuna casserole. Says I always serve tuna casserole. Little Brian started tugging on Senior's leg, the dog was barking, and the stereo was playing loud. I guess Senior lost it. He pushed little Brian away and started cussing. As I tried to calm Senior, he just got louder and louder. I was becoming afraid. Thinking that he was going to get physical, I picked up little Brian and ran into the bedroom. Senior started banging on the door, so I opened it. Before I could say a word, Senior balled up his fist and struck me in the side of the head. As I started to cry, it seems he got madder and madder. He struck me again, this time knocking me unconscious. When I awoke a short time later, I immediately called the police. When they arrived, Brian was upstairs in the shower. The police took a report and asked Brian to leave. Funny, he was trying to act as if nothing happened. Anyway, the police escorted him away, and I went to the commissioner and pressed charges. Senior was required to stay away until the court date, at which time he was found guilty. He made the judge mad by not admitting he committed the offense. I believe that's why he was locked up. Now, Mr. Phillips, I'd like you to give me your version of the offense.
What difference does my version make? You people made me lose my job, my house, my car, and most of all, my dignity. But I suppose if I don't cooperate, my probation will be violated. I really can't stand to go back to the detention center.
Look, as I said before, Mr. Phillips, this interview has nothing to do with your current probation status or conviction. What happened was not my fault. I was not involved in your domestic problems. I'm collecting information to complete on your case file. This information is confidential and will not be revealed to outsiders.
I know whose fault it is. It's my attorney's fault. He was carrying on with Darcy the whole time I was at court. What a fool I was.
Darcy, that's your girlfriend's name?
I can think of more appropriate names. Well, Darcy's story was so full of lies. What's worse is the judge decided to believe her. I guess it was those crocodile tears. She put up a good act in the courtroom.
Look, go on.
Okay, I came home. It was Friday night. I remember it clearly. I was really looking forward to that weekend with little Brian. He's my son. I was going to take him to the circus. Anyway, I did have a difficult day at work. My boss had been pressuring me lately. Sales figures were declining and my division wasn't doing so good. I put this all out of my mind. I wasn't going to let this ruin our dinner. When I got home, the house was a mess. Little Brian was crying. It looked as though his diaper hadn't been changed all day. At first, Darcy was nowhere in sight. I looked all over. I looked in every room. I was beginning to get a little worried. There was water boiling on the stove, and the stereo was playing really loud. As I started to comfort little Brian, Darcy comes to the front door. The front door! She smelled like alcohol. Apparently, she'd been at the neighbor's house. She claimed she went for some baking powder and was gone for only a minute. I was really angry. Brian was left all alone. There was boiling water on the stove, and who knows what could have happened. We started to argue, and it didn't take me much time to realize just how drunk she was. She was slurring her speech, and it was difficult to understand her. Well, I picked up little Brian, took him to the nursery, and was starting to change his diaper. Granted, I was angry. I was doing a little cussing, but all I wanted to do was change Brian and maybe take him out for dinner. Darcy was getting madder and madder. I told her that I wanted to take Brian until she sobered up, but she wouldn't hear of it. She said she was going to call the police on me for kidnapping. I just ignored her. Then she did the strangest thing. She started banging her head against the wall. She said she was going to call the police and tell them that I was beating her. I said, go ahead. And I went upstairs to take a shower, thinking that it was all over. The next thing I know, the police are banging on the bathroom door.
Is that when they told you to leave?
Yeah, the cops wouldn't give me a chance to explain. They just kept insisting that I get some clothes on and leave.
Look, did you ever have problems in your relationship before? Have the police ever been called to your house?
Yeah. I called them one time when Darcy was getting out of hand. It's too bad the same cops weren't there to respond this time. They might have remembered me.
Look, if your wife had been drinking, why did the police believe her story?
It's a good question. It's almost as if they were biased from the start. The judge didn't even want to listen to my side of the story.
You say Darcy was carrying on with your attorney. Can you elaborate?
Well, it wasn't until after my conviction that I found out. While I was in the county detention center, my mother came to visit me. She told me she stopped by the house to see Brian, and my attorney was there. That sounds kind of strange. She told me he seemed real nervous, like surprised that she should come by. He had no business being there. I asked my brother, he doesn't live too far away. I asked him to keep an eye on the house for me, and sure enough, he claims that my attorney's car was parked overnight. He even showed me photos.
Look, why don't you lodge a complaint with the Bar Association?
What good would that do? I've already lost my job. I lost my visitation rights to see my son. I just want this whole thing behind me.
What other hardships has this incident caused?
You name it. For the first time in my family's history, one of us had to go for a handout. I'm receiving food stamps just to make ends meet. It's so embarrassing just to go to that office. You already know I lost my job because of this whole thing. As soon as my employer found out, I was fired. Fortunately, I won my unemployment compensation appeal. IBM originally refused to pay because I was incarcerated and couldn't come to work. Let's see. I lost my car. The court awarded it to Darcy. Although I must continue to make the payments, I can't afford to let my credit go bad. I've worked too hard and I'll have to start all over again in the future. I lost my house. Although Darcy's allowed to live there, I have to make the payments. Little Brian needs a place to stay. I can't just let him live on the streets. The thing that bothers me the most is I can't even see my son until I go back to court. The judge, he says that my violent temper might be directed towards my son. I love him more than anything. I never hurt him. Please believe me.
I believe you.
I've lost my pride and my belief in the judicial system. I was wrongly convicted. My girlfriend knows it. She's laughing behind my back. This has cost me way too much.
Look, Mr. Phillips, this concludes my interview. This information will be in your post-conviction file, and I wish you the best.
Look, one other thing. I've been looking for work for about a month now. Most of the prospectus, they ask me if I've ever been arrested. I tell them I have. I want to tell the truth. As soon as I tell them that, nobody calls me back for an interview. I don't think things are going to get any better in the future, do you?
Look, I'm sure you'll work something out. Good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.